I'll tell you this. Whether I'm competing in New York or not, I'll be there. So if I'm not competing, I'm going to show up and I'll be there and I'll support the
Sure.
show for sure. But either way, I want to focus on Pittsburgh. This is number one.
I do not think you're good for the sport. I think you're garbage for the sport, and garbage is an influencer. And I think the Jay Cutlers and the Phil Heaths of the world need to take you aside and say, you got a great future ahead. If you want to see 30, there's some things that need to change.
All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, another potentially massive update about Derek Lunsford. He was asked on the Olympia TV YouTube channel in an interview if he would be competing in the New York Pro. Now, if you guys don't know, Derek is doing the Pittsburgh Pro. He confirmed that, and there's only 1 week in between New York and Pittsburgh. It's just the following weekend. And Derek says, it sounds like he doesn't know the answer yet, because he says, I will be there no matter what. I believe his exact words were, I will be there whether I'm competing or not. I just don't know. So Derek, in my opinion, is really delivering to the bodybuilding fans what they want to see. Because take this in contrast to what happened with Nick Walker. Nick Walker sitting out the Olympia 2 years in a row, one time seemingly involuntarily. But you saw, I believe it was Sean Ray that called Nick Walker Nick Talker. And look at how the fans reacted to Nick not competing, but then Nick saying, I'm going to win the Olympia, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm one of the best bodybuilders in the world, etc. Look at the fan reaction to Nick, and look at what Derek is doing now. Derek lost his title at the Olympia in 2024. He's not just saying, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia again. He's saying, I'm going to show you guys why I'm the best in the world by doing these shows. He didn't have to do the Arnold. He did it. He beat Samson Dowda, your reigning Mr. Olympia. Honestly, I don't think anybody had Derek in first in their prediction video before prejudging. I think almost everybody thought Samson was going to come in and win this thing, and Derek proved everybody wrong, including me. So I think Derek should get a little bit more respect on his name now, especially with what he's doing, because I think if he does all three, if he does the Arnold, then he does Pittsburgh, and then he also does New York, and then wins all three, and then goes on to win the Olympia. Granted, this is a big stretch. This is just me pontificating here a little bit, but if he were able to do that, I think that would be one of the best Olympia title runs we've ever seen. To lose the title, to then a couple months later beating the guy that beat you at the Olympia, winning essentially the three other biggest shows in bodybuilding right now, and then winning the Olympia, winning your title back, that would be one of the greatest single-year runs I think we've ever seen. And the other thing, too, with Derek is like going into a lineup like Pittsburgh or even New York. Yes, Pittsburgh has this crazy lineup. You've got Martin, you've got Nick, you've got Crizzo, you've got Good Vito, you've got Bonac. But in reality, since Derek has been an open bodybuilder, there's only 2 bodybuilders that have beaten Derek in his entire open career, and that would be Hadi Chupin and Samson Dowda, and neither of them are going to be in Pittsburgh, and he just beat Samson. And Samson beat the only other guy to beat Derek at the Olympia, Hadi Chupin. So that's why I think Derek should do both shows, but only if the decision is not close in Pittsburgh. Because there is an element of risk to this. Derek has a ton of momentum coming off that Arnold Classic win. And the risk is, if he loses in Pittsburgh, then that's going to diminish that momentum and then change the conversation a lot. Because I think right now, there's a strong argument to be made that going into the Olympia, Derek is actually the favorite. But if he loses in Pittsburgh, I think that narrative certainly changes. But if it's close in Pittsburgh, so assuming Derek wins, but somebody else, whether it's Nick, Martin, Good Vito, if it's really close between the top 2 and it's a narrow margin of victory, then I don't think Derek does the New York show, because then the risk is too high trying to peak 1 week after just peaking for a show. It could go wrong and he could actually end up losing in New York, especially if it was close in Pittsburgh. But if Derek comes in and does Pittsburgh and it's a blowout, which there's a good chance that it will be, because like I said, there's only 2 men in Derek's open career that have ever beaten him. Neither of them will be here, and he already beat one of them a couple months ago. Derek is by far the favorite to win Pittsburgh. So if he wins and it's a slam dunk, I think it's a massive power move to go and also do New York if the risk seems like it's not there. There's always going to be a little risk that he could come in off, he could lose, whatever. But if he comes in Pittsburgh is the slam dunk that we think it might be, I think he almost has to do New York just to keep applying pressure to these guys, because I think it's like a total power play. The fact that Nick Walker, for example, Nick already said his game plan is to come into Pittsburgh, win the Pittsburgh, qualify for the Olympia, and then go straight to the O from there. If Derek comes in and wins Pittsburgh, of course Nick is going to also go to New York because he still has to qualify. Martin already qualified in Prague, so I don't know if Martin would go on to do both or what. But for Derek, if Derek does Pittsburgh and New York and he wins both of them, he's forcing Nick to do a third show that he didn't even plan on doing, when I don't even think he planned on doing New York. And right now, that also goes for Crizzo, that also goes for Bonac, that also goes for Good Vito, but that could change because Bonac is competing in Detroit this weekend. He might win that and get his qualification. Then you also have Good Vito competing in South America next weekend. He might win that and get his qualification. And Crizzo competes a lot throughout the summer in the European show, so he's got those opportunities as well. But the guy that Derek would be applying the most pressure to in this scenario, if he does both shows, would be Nick Walker. And I think the interesting thing about that is Nick said, I don't think he actually said this year that he's going to win the Olympia. He said he will be top 3. So if you do the math on that, and there's only 2 guys that have beaten Derek, Hadi and Sampson, then Nick saying that would position Nick, at least in Nick's mind, as the next biggest threat to Derek. So Derek is making a massive power move if he does and wins both shows and forces Nick to keep competing and exerting energy, doing more preps, wasting more time essentially, that he could be focused on the Olympia, that he'd be squeezing his competition essentially. And if he comes in and dominates Pittsburgh and New York is just a week later, I mean, why not? But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Should Derek do the New York Pro and the Pittsburgh Pro? And let me know why you think either way. Now, next up in the news, we're going to be talking about another clip from the Olympia TV YouTube channel. This seemed to stir up quite a bit of turmoil amongst the bodybuilding community online, at least. So I'm going to play the full clip to give you guys context, but just to give you guys a setup here, the host in the center, Tim Wilkins, he's been an MC for the Olympia. He's been around for a while. He's also a competitor as well, a masters competitor, I believe, in men's physique. But he went off on kind of a rant about Sam Sulek, and a pretty harsh rant where he calls Sam Sulek garbage, a garbage influencer, and implies that he's a bad influence on the millions of kids that follow him. But before I take it out of context, I'll play you guys the whole clip so you guys have full context, and then we'll talk about it here.
Start by saying, I know we judge against who was there at the time. And when you get your pro card, you get your pro card. Get ready, all your haters and jealous and whatnot. When I did North Americans last year, there were 18 guys in the over 50D class. Over 50D.
D.
6 of them could have gone pro, and 3 of them could have been top 5 at any show they did ever. So don't get too far ahead of yourself. But I'm going to say something interesting, Tarek. And I'm going to direct this to Sam, and I'm going to say it from the coach. I coach kids who ask me about you all the time. I had my millennial son ask me about you the other time. I do not think you're good for the sport. I think you're garbage for the sport, and garbage is an influencer. And I think the Jay Cutlers and the Phil Heaths of the world need to take you aside and say, you got a great future ahead. If you want to see 30, there's some things that need to change. You have 6 to 10 million young people following you. You're eating like you know what. You show it on your skin. You're taking things that are way beyond your skill level, build to your max first,
Yes.
and build from there.
And learn.
I was contemplating doing this, and the clip of a Primetime Muscle, as I'm thinking about all this, that we played, was about longevity. I'm telling you this as someone who cares about the sport, the youth that follow you, and Sam, I care about you. Knock it off. Slow down. I saw him post a video the other day that said, you only see the years that I've posted online, not all the years that I've put in. You're 23. There aren't a lot of years. There's not a lot of background.
No.
Slow down, take your time, keep your pro card active, and when it's right, build safely.
Wow.
All right, so you heard the clip. Let's talk about it. I can see the point that Tim is trying to make here. I can see the message that he's trying to formulate, but this was just very out of touch. I wouldn't even say worded it wrong would be the right way to describe it. It was just super out of touch and way off base. His message was essentially for young kids to be thinking about longevity when they get into bodybuilding, which is a good message. But this whole trashing Sam and calling him garbage thing really has nothing to do with that message at all. And I thought one of the weird parts of this was, like, in the beginning, he's kind of talking about how when he competed, it was much harder to get a pro card, and the guys that he competed against when he was trying to get a pro card were much higher level. When it comes to Sam getting his pro card, I just want to put this out there. I've said it in my videos about the wrap-ups of the Arnold Amateur, etc. Sam did arguably one of the biggest amateur shows that you could possibly do. He can only compete against who shows up. Sam doesn't control that. So don't hate the player, hate the game. If you think they're giving out pro cards too easily, don't be mad at Sam. Be mad at the organization. Be mad at the game. Sam picked a massive show to do to get this pro card. Probably the biggest spotlight that there would be on him. Everybody knew he was doing it like a month in advance. Anybody that wanted to come challenge Sam that was prepping could have showed up. It's not Sam's fault that it was 3 guys in that call out for the pro card. So I really don't understand the people taking shots at Sam, implying that he didn't deserve his pro card or he earned it too easily. What did you want Sam to do? Turn down the pro card when they gave it to him on stage because he won? So that's one thing. I really don't get why people are dogging on the guy. He did 2 shows and got his pro card. Yes, it was very quick, but he did exactly what the organization had him do. Qualify for the Arnold Amateur, compete in the Arnold Amateur, win the overall, then you get a pro card. He did what they laid out, and he got his pro card. So don't hate the player, hate the game. That's the first point that I wanted to make about Sam. The second thing is, I thought it was really weird in the clip with Tim Wilkins where he said, I would like to see the Jay Cutlers and the Phil Heaths of the world have a talk with Sam and tell him some things need to change, give him some advice. Now, I believe, if I'm interpreting this correctly, he's referencing Sam's drug use, and he also referenced Sam's diet. Now, Sam has never been a guy that has talked about his drug use publicly at all. I don't think he encourages it. I've never seen him encourage it. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I've never seen him even really talk about it. He films himself talking in his car, training, posing, eating, cooking. That's it. Now, is Sam on gear? Obviously. But so is every other, and that was the point that I wanted to make here. So the implication is that Sam is a young guy. He's on gear, which, again, I agree with the premise that in general, if you're in your early 20s, it's probably best to just not take gear. Build the foundation first. I agree with that premise. But to call Sam garbage for this, I just don't get it, because it's no different than anybody else these kids are going to follow. And specifically, I love Jay Cutler. Phil Heath is a great guy after talking to him in person. That part of it I didn't understand. I mean, are we operating under the premise that Jay Cutler and Phil Heath were natural? I don't understand that at all. So what I'm getting from this is the only thing Sam did wrong was be young, get a pro card, take gear, and compete. I just don't get it. It's the irony of it to me is the Olympia platform being the vehicle to deliver this message. How many bodybuilders have died in the pursuit of winning the Olympia? There's been bodybuilders that died at the Olympia. The fact of the matter, and it's a shitty fact, it's not a fun fact to accept, but the fact of the matter is bodybuilding is not a safe sport. It's just not. And we have to just kind of accept that. Sam is doing nothing different than anybody that competes at the Olympia besides the fact that he's 23. And I'm sure there's been guys that are younger than 23 competing at the Olympia. All Sam does is film his workouts, film him driving in the car, film himself eating. I don't see how this is a bad influence. People relate to it. It inspires more people to work out. I would wager it inspires way more people to start lifting than it does to start taking gear, which I think is the important thing. It inspires more people to get into fitness. I know people that are completely outside of the fitness realm, or the bodybuilding realm, I should say. They could not tell you one pro bodybuilder's name. They couldn't tell you one fact about Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they know who Sam Sulek is. They've seen him on TikTok, whatever. That's the effect that Sam Sulek has. He's relatable, and he's not even pushing drugs. He doesn't even talk about him. It's not like he's the next, Boston Lloyd or Rich Piana. I just thought this was a super out-of-touch take, and I kind of wonder, this is my conspiracy theory portion of the episode. This is total just raw speculation here. But I saw this comment. This was Lee Priest commenting to Tim Wilkins and Tim Wilkins replying. And this to me seemed, the response from Tim Wilkins seemed extremely similar to what Bob Ciccarello said to Nick Walker. And they both worked for the Olympia. So here's what it said. Lee Priest said, I was 23, Tim, like same as a pro. I had out in 10 years competing. I had put in 10 years competing by then. So be quiet. Seriously, this show is what's wrong with the sport. Only decent guy on the show is Chris Cormier. Other two fools haven't got a clue. You're a hack. And the other guy is only in it because of who his brother is. Pathetic. And Tim says, people like you love to say, who the hell is Tim Wilkins? Who is he to comment on the sport? I emceed 3 of your last 4 Olympias, and my podium placed higher than you did. So he literally quoted Bob in the beginning there, and then the same type of dig that Bob took at Nick Walker, where Bob said, I'm going to announce you. I'm going to be the guy who's announcing you in 8th place. I was hesitant to talk about this because my conspiracy theory is, could this be the Olympia trying to stir the pot? Could they have told these guys, like Bob or like Tim, make some waves, stir up some controversy, call some people out, get people talking about the Olympia, get people talking about the channel, which we're doing here. And again, this is just pure speculation. I'm having a little bit of fun with it here, but it is weird because it seems like, I've seen a lot of clips from this podcast and Tim Wilkins, and I've seen him MC and do the commentary for the Olympia, and he seemed like a pretty level guy. So this trashing Sam Sulek thing seemed like way out of left field, and even the Bob and Nick thing seemed way out of left field. And I had just seen a clip of Dan Solomon, who is, I guess, the president of the Olympia. I don't know what his exact title is, but I saw a clip of him talking about their plans to expand, and he said he wants it to be more like the WWE. Now, what he meant was in terms of the venues, the size of the venues, like the WWE does. But I just saw that clip, and I'm seeing this Bob stuff, I'm seeing this Tim stuff, and it feels like WWE stuff. Because these guys do work for the Olympia at the end of the day, and more so with the Tim thing than the Bob thing, because that podcast, the Primetime Muscle, that stuff is filmed, produced, and put out at the Olympia, their studio. That was definitely something that was approved. But I do want to say the same thing about Tim that I said about Bob, and that is that I think anybody should be able to have an opinion and voice their opinion and say whatever they want about bodybuilding. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be able to do that. And if he wants to do it on the Olympia platform, that's also fine. But I think that people should be able to voice their reaction to that opinion as well. And you got to kind of take what comes with it and listen to feedback. And that's how you develop better opinions over time. Informed opinions. I just kind of have a soft spot for Sam because I think what he's doing is good. He is influencing a lot of people. I don't think he's influencing a lot of people to take gear. I'm sure maybe some, yeah. But I think for the most part, he's introducing a lot of young people to lifting and bodybuilding, which I think is a net positive overall. And I was the same age as Sam when my channel really took off. I was 23 when I had the biggest year of my channel as far as growth or whatever. And I think that's just like a sweet spot age that's relatable to a lot of people. You've got the younger crowd, like the high schoolers, the college kids that are slightly below that age, and you've got the 23 to 30 somethings that are right above that age. It's like the sweet spot of where there's a lot of people that can relate to you. But then there's also like 5 decades ahead of you that are going to shit on you because you're a young guy. And I experienced that when I was 23. I mean, I'm 31. I'm about to be 32 now, so it's been a long time that I've been doing this. But I know the position that Sam's in. This is probably the peak of his popularity, and hopefully he gets even bigger than this, but this is probably the peak. And the peak means there's a target on your back. And I just don't think Sam has done anything wrong or anything different than any Mr. Olympia champ, any Mr. Olympia competitor, almost any bodybuilding influencer. He's doing the exact same thing as them, and he's not even promoting the gear aspect of it. So why single Sam out in this clip? The only reason is because he's huge. He's at the peak. He's the biggest one doing it right now. That's why single him out and shit on him. I would bet there's more than 10,000 23-year-old kids doing exactly what Sam is doing right now. Taking gear, competing, lifting, vlogging, and posting it on YouTube. But Sam is the biggest of them all, and that's why he's got the target. And like I said, I get it. I get the message. I agree with it. I'm natural myself. I've never taken gear, never will. And that's a difficult thing to do in an industry where everybody is on gear. So I get the message. I agree that if you're an average 23-year-old kid, you should probably keep lifting for another 5 to 10 years before you even think about taking gear. And I also agree that if you can stay natural for your entire life, you should 100% do it. I think that in general, bodybuilding is a high-risk sport. In general, it has a net negative impact on your health, on your life expectancy, at the pro level, at the enhanced level. But that being said, I don't think that what Sam is doing is encouraging that aspect of it. He just loves to work out, and he loves bodybuilding. It's not that he loves gear, although he might. That's not the message that he's sending. Now, this is getting a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, so let me know what you guys thought about that previous story in the comments below. And the final story that I've got for you guys today, just to wrap it up, one more update before we get into this weekend's Detroit Pro from Sauce Heirati, who I think is the dark horse here. Like I said, he doesn't have a lot of contest history that would make you think he's going to win this show. The last show that he did was the M Pro Classic in Spain, where he was 4th, which William Bonac won that show. But these updates that we've been getting from him are very impressive. There's no doubt about it. I still think that James and Bonac are the favorites here, but Sauce Heirati, I think, is the dark horse to maybe crack into that top 2, top 3. I want to see Carlos Thomas Jr. do well here. I don't know what he's looking like. He hasn't posted anything, but what we see from Sauce is pretty damn impressive. And I think for me, when I'm thinking about Detroit this weekend, I'm thinking about Bonac, I'm thinking about James, and then Sauce and Carlos. Which one of those two guys is going to rise to the occasion and be top 3 or potentially top 2? And that's why I said these next couple shows are going to be very important to watch. Going into Pittsburgh, with Derek doing that show, Derek potentially doing New York. This Detroit show will be an important qualification for William Bonac. Next week's South America show will be an important qualification for Good Vito, especially for Good Vito, to win those shows and get to the Olympia, because Good Vito's only 3 shows that he announced that he was doing were South America, New York, and Pittsburgh. And if Derek does both Pittsburgh and New York, he will be taking away a qualification in all likelihood from Good Vito if Good Vito doesn't qualify in South America. And same to Bonac, although I'm sure Bonac, he'll just continue to compete until he gets there, because Bonac he's a trooper. But going into Pittsburgh and New York, what will be interesting to watch is who in that lineup still needs to qualify. I think Nick is the big one. We talked about that earlier. But I think we could see with Bonac and Good Vito, they might qualify here early, and Pittsburgh doesn't matter as much. New York doesn't matter as much. But if they don't, those are big shows for them. But this video is getting way too long. I wanted it to be like a 10-minute video. But so let me know what you guys think, your predictions for the Detroit Pro. Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.